Standing over 6 feet 8 inches tall and 3 feet 9 inches wide with 63 unique drawers, this giant apothecary style cabinet might be any maker's dream, and today it's getting an incredible transformation. Whether you're a woodworker, a seamstress, an artist, or anything else for that matter, an old forgotten piece like this could not only transform your workspace, but offer endless storage for all your tools and supplies. My name is Barry, and it's good to be with you again. My morning actually started like this. I don't know if you're like me, but I like having things organized in my workspace. My garage is an active workshop, so this mess isn't weeks of neglect. My workspace can get cluttered like this in a matter of days, but I think I finally have a solution. Today I'm ready to restore this giant antique cabinet, and if things go as planned, it's going to be a forever piece in my workshop. Can you guess how much I paid for this piece? Also, I'm going to show you something else I recently acquired for the shop. I may need your help coming up with ideas for it. Removing one drawer at a time will make this cabinet easier to move around. Thankfully, the drawers and the slots are already numbered. I found this cabinet listed on Facebook Marketplace several months ago. The seller originally had it listed for $850, but we agreed on a price of $500. That price still felt a little steep because this is actually just an old handmade piece, not a highly sought after factory manufactured cabinet. In fact, we see the primitive manner in which this was constructed. That's not to criticize the craftsman. I was told that this was used for many years by a local blacksmith out of Mapleton, Wisconsin, and I'm sure something like this, with so much storage, served him well. I like the rich history behind old industrial pieces like this. These days, I don't actually think I could even purchase all the lumber necessary to build something like this for under $500, not to mention the weeks it would take an amateur builder like me to make it. This looks to have been constructed using old pallets and crates, made of mostly pine and some Douglas fir. This piece did come with most of the original hardware, but it's not very practical for daily access to all of my tools. I'm just going to pretend that the original builder would have used card catalog poles if available at the time. Instead of sourcing 64 original poles, which would have cost me a fortune, I purchased these poles from Amazon. This is just a handmade cabinet, not a factory-made piece with significant value, so I'm more interested in making sure this piece is set up for practical daily use in my workshop. After a trip to the hardware store for some more lumber, I first set out to make a top for the cabinet. I don't need anything fancy, but there's this strange void above the top drawers, and I'd like to make this appear more intentional. My shop space is limited, so my table saw is tucked away for now. I decided to make most of the cuts using hand saws, since this is just soft pine. Using hand saws the way I am means none of the miters will be perfect, but that seems to fit the way that this entire handmade piece was built. As most of you know, this vintage cabinet isn't a true apothecary cabinet, but it certainly resembles one. An apothecary traditionally refers to a person who prepared and sold medicines. They needed to organize dozens of ingredients, including dried herbs, roots, minerals, powders, and so on. So they used cabinets with lots of labeled compartments. Each drawer held a specific substance, making it easy to find and measure quickly. So you can see how this cabinet likely echoes that same design logic. Highly organized compartmental storage for many small items, even if you're using it for crafts or tools. Well, I finished some of the trim work, and I'm not sure if I'll use this or not, but I'm going to install this strip of LED lights. I really won't know if this was a good idea until I see the completed project. I was told by the previous owner that this entire cabinet was once painted white, and there's still plenty of evidence. Thankfully, with this project, I can skip right to the sanding. I'll use both the Surf Prep 3x4 and Orbital electric sanders with a variety of abrasives. I'm not sponsored by Surf Prep, but their sanding system with the dust extractor, the sanders, and the abrasives has saved me so much additional work over the years. This is a great investment, and I'll link more info in the description. My vision is to match this cabinet to the colors of other industrial pieces in my workshop, so I'll test a few stains on this pine. Since evergreen softwood, like pine, is a faster growing tree, the wood will be more porous than a hardwood. The point is that I expect a traditional oil-based penetrating stain to soak into the fibers, and also expect that it could look blotchy. It's hard to believe it's almost April already, and here in Wisconsin, that usually means the possibility of a 2-foot snowstorm in the same week the temperatures reach 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I love this time of year when we see new growth and other signs of life. Over the years, lawn care has been important to me. It's a hobby that I really enjoy, and this year, for my lawn care, I chose a treatment plan with no harsh chemicals, and one that is pet-friendly. Sunday Lawn Care has made that easy with a lawn care treatment plan that fits my specific needs. I used their soil sample kit to send off several soil samples from around the yard. With that information, Sunday put together a scheduled, easy-to-follow plan for lawn treatment from early spring through late fall. All the products arrived at my door in just a few days, with free shipping. With my specific plan, I can see that my first treatment is the Iron Boost, due April 13th through the 20th. I've realized with the restoration work that I'm doing, I won't likely ever reach perfection, but it's satisfying to put in the work to make things just a little better. To see something completely transformed that I can stand back and be proud of. You can get 25% off your first lawn plan with code MADCITY25 at getsunday.com/MadCity. Thank you Sunday for sponsoring this video, and by choosing Sunday, you're choosing to support my small business, and I can't thank you enough. Most of this rough-cut lumber was never actually sanded, so I don't need this project to be perfect, but I'll still make an attempt to pass the sanding sponge over every section I can reach. This should improve the appearance, and also help the drawers slide a little easier. When testing the stains, the color I liked the most was honey. I'll wipe the oil-based penetrating stain on with a foam brush, and at this point, I'm already preparing myself for how terrible this might first look, but I do have a plan. As I was working, I was thinking I don't actually know much about the history of this piece. All I can go off of is what I was told by the previous seller, that this giant cabinet was built and used by a local blacksmith. I would imagine he was probably a jack of all trades, and built this cabinet out of necessity. I don't actually know if that was during the 1930s or the 1970s. Maybe you'll soon discover a few clues that I overlooked. Perhaps noticing clues based on the materials used that would help narrow that window. The only clues I've seen were the scraps from the old pallets that were stamped locally here in Wisconsin. I decided to protect this cabinet with shellac, and I'll spray it on with the HVLP sprayer. I purchased a quart of shellac from the hardware store, but I'll finally also be able to use up some of the 3-pound cut of shellac that I mixed months ago. To thin this out for the sprayer, I'll just add a splash of denatured alcohol. We know this is a handmade piece using mostly scrap wood, so I don't expect perfection. But what did surprise me was the discovery of so many nail holes that appear to be patched with wood filler. I would imagine maybe this is why this cabinet was painted in the first place. I don't mind the character of the contrasting colors, but I would like to tone this down a little bit. So I added some trans tint to the shellac. This will help blend all the colors across the entire piece. Is it perfect? No, but I do think that it helped. Trans tint works well because it's alcohol-based compatibility. Trans tint is a dye that dissolves extremely well in alcohol, since shellac is dissolved in denatured alcohol. The dye fully dissolves when you mix them, so there's no particles and no cloudiness. Once I had the first coat of shellac on the empty cabinet, I put all the drawers back in so I could be certain the color was consistent throughout as I continued spraying. While the shellac dries, I'll begin preparing the location where this will sit in my workshop. This will be a good time to share with you another recent purchase, and I'm showing you, wondering if anyone has any creative ideas how I could repurpose this. It's an old ice box from the turn of the century. For a long time I've admired these, but lately they've just been too expensive to justify purchasing one. I paid $120 for this one, a great price in my opinion. I've seen these repurposed as mini bars, and although I think it's one of the best ideas, I'm looking for something a little more out of the ordinary, and I hope not to make any changes to the original design. If you don't mind, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Well, the back is looking clean, but as the front dried, I noticed the base was a little lighter than the top. I did my best to continue blending this, but there will be some contrast once completed. For my workshop, I'm still content with the result. The shellac dried overnight, and the next morning I set up a table to wax all the drawers and install the hardware. I'll apply the wax polish with fine steel wool. Not only will it help add an extra layer of protection to the entire piece, but it will also help cut down the glossy sheen of the shellac. After about 15 minutes, I'll polish the dried wax with a cotton cloth. I think the original builder of this cabinet did a great job, but still, none of the drawers align perfectly the way that you expect a factory-made piece to. So perfection when it comes to measuring the spacing for the poles may in fact make this piece look worse, so I decided to just eye up each one of the poles as I installed them. I'm pleased with the way they turned out. It's going to take me weeks to slowly fill this cabinet with tools and supplies, and it's something I really look forward to. At that point, I'll add the labels as necessary. For now, I'm calling this project done. When I stand back and look at it, it has so many quirky imperfections, but I think it still stands proud, showing years of character. My name is Barry, and I appreciate you joining me for another restoration project, and a heartfelt thank you for all the love and support from episode 159. Goodbye for now.